This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody. Keith Engel, TGI Sports Talk, right here on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. How are you today? This interesting Friday morning. It's poured here in East Greenbush, New York, since about 8 o'clock last night. Hope you're safe and dry wherever you are today. The weather is going to get better, and we're going to have some nice fall weather here the next couple days. Looking forward to it. Great football weekend coming up. Not a huge, great college slate, but watch the College Football Huddle show, which we'll replay today at 12 and tomorrow at 10 a.m. I think we do it live Wednesdays at 7. So I hope you'll check that out. We'll also have our live stream of consciousness show on Sunday morning, recapping all of Saturday's games, the upcoming NFL games, and actually in the NFL. I want to thank the groups that allow me to share this show. And thank all of you that will show up and comment today. The interview was recorded last Tuesday night, this past Tuesday night. So after the open, I'll play the recording and I'll pop back on for the close. I want to also thank my guest from last week, Skip Hall, former head coach of Boise State, longtime assistant coach. Working alongside the great Don James at Washington, and before that, Kent State. Worked with Nick Saban. Skip has got a book out called Coach 'Em Up, the Skip Hall story. The forward is by the aforementioned Nick Saban, so it's a really good read. I've jumped into it a lot this week, and any of you football fans, it's a great football story, and it's a great life lesson story as well. So I hope you guys will check that out. My guest today, as I said, Ed White, former All-American defensive lineman for Cal, was the #1 draft pick for the Minnesota Vikings. They moved him to offensive line, where he became a Pro Bowl player with the Vikings, played in 4 Super Bowls on some great Vikings teams, as Viking fans will remember. They never quite got over the hump to win the Super Bowl, and we'll talk a little about that. Later on, he played with some great Charger teams, played with 2 of the best coaches in college pro football history. Well, in Don Coryell's case, college too, in Bud Grant and Don Coryell. And also check out Ed's artwork. Today, Ed is heavily involved in artwork, and he'll talk a little bit about that during the interview. And you can go to edwhitefootball.com and check out his artwork. So without further ado, I think we'll jump into the interview, and I'll be back at the end. Any comments I'll try to catch up on at the end. And I hope you guys enjoyed this interview with Ed White, former Viking and Charger. Great. All right. Again, as I said, my guest this morning is Ed White, former outstanding offensive lineman for the Vikings, Chargers. Again, and Ed will talk about this a little bit, but I know that no less an authority on great offensive linemen than Dan Fouts says he can't believe that Ed White is not in the NFL Hall of Fame. So I want to welcome you to the show today, and thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Keith. Appreciate it.
Great having you. I love having this show is kind of turned into my little nostalgia hour. I do some other shows during the week, but this show has really caught hold because I think there's a great calling for a simpler time in sports, I think. And whether it's baseball players or football players like yourself, I think they're all well received. So
you have an old fan base.
or I'm just old and like a lot of old players. I don't know. It could be that. But I thank you for either way for coming on.
You're welcome.
And Ed, we'll jump around here a little bit. I want to talk about your career, and I definitely want to talk about your endeavors today. I know you've got yourself into the world of painting and artwork.
Yeah.
So I certainly want to talk on that. In fact, before we start in, why don't you give a little plug to your website and what it is that you are doing in the art world today?
Well, I've been an artist since I was 6 years old, and so I've always had that as something that I've enjoyed, and I've done so many things. I did John Madden's All Madden team bronze trophies for years, and I do San Diego States and UCSDs, and I do a lot of their Hall of Fame pieces. But I really have been concentrating on my acrylic painting, and I just express whatever I feel. It's all over the place, and it's at edwhiteart.com. Enjoy it. I do something and I post it to share it, and every once in a while somebody wants to buy one, and so that makes me happy too.
Do you do custom work if people are asking for?
I do.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah, a little bit. I did a 3-piece that was 12 feet by 6 feet, which pretty much encompassed my studio. It kind of took a lot out of me, so I've been painting less, but I'm getting back into it now again. And but I've done, that was a custom piece that I finished.
Well, that's awesome, and I'll certainly get the website up, the link to the website up and on the when I share this to all the groups that I share it to. I've got a ton of Minnesota Viking groups and San Diego Charger groups that I belong to that I know are going to be excited about this interview, and we'll certainly get that information in front of them.
Great.
So
Great.
I've seen the work too, people. It's really, really some good stuff that Ed's doing. Good job. Ed, let's circle backwards in time.
All right.
As you're growing up out there in California, do you have aspirations as a young man to be a professional football player as you're going through high school? And
well, it goes before that. I played in the streets. I grew up in the outskirts of San Diego and Lemon Grove, which was noted for lemon groves, and it was pretty country back then. And I played in the streets, and on the weekends, the big deal would be to go down to the junior high school, and we'd all gather up and play tackle football. No instruction, no coaches. And an amazing thing happened to a lot of us. There were 3 guys that played pro football out of that little gangle of guys, and 4 or 5 guys got major college scholarships out of that group, and which amazes me, because I then moved down to the desert down outside of Palm Springs and went to Indio High School.
Yeah.
And I was the only pro out of that school, which had a couple thousand kids a year come out of there for years. And so it amazed me, the accomplishments of that little group of kids who just got together and learned how to, nobody cried because you'd, be expelled from the group, and nobody wanted to go home and have mom not let you play. And so we learned a lot of things about toughness and pride and things that it's hard to teach as a coach.
Who were the other 2 that made it to the NFL that you were?
Well, Mike Foote was one. He played for the Rams. He was a linebacker. Okay. And then Wally Johnson was another one that was another linebacker. Both of those guys went to Oregon State. And then there was a wide receiver that went to Wisconsin, Ron Sabo. And then probably the best player died trying to save a little kid from drowning in a little lake outside of San Diego, and he was Walter Clark was his name, and the park is named Walter Clark Park. So that was the group, but it was incredible.
Incredible for sure. It's funny, you get that little group of people, and you get into a much larger group, and you're the guy. Well, being the guy, I mean, were you heavily recruited out of high school? I know you ended up at Cal, obviously, and an All-American there.
Well, I was recruited. I was moderately recruited, I'd say, but no, I had about 35 or 40 scholarships. Washington, UCLA, Tommy Prothero wanted me bad, and then some other schools across the country. But I wanted to stay in California. I was born and raised, and I tended to like the weather out here, so I decided to stay close. And I went to Cal. Ray Woolsey was the coach, and I liked Coach Woolsey, and I loved the university campus and the academics there, and studied architecture, have a degree in landscape architecture, and really enjoyed it.
What were those years like? I mean, the Pac 8. Well, what was it then? Pac 8, I guess, right?
Well, the thing that strikes me, it was the Berkeley was the center of the peace and freedom and all the riots and
Right.
all the stuff that was going on was right in Berkeley at that time, which was amazing to watch and not be a part of, but to observe it. And so that was the big thing that was going on, more so than football. We had a very good football team. We had an excellent defense, one of the best in the country. We went back and played Army. At Army, we played Michigan, Penn State. We played some big schools. We played Notre Dame, and like I said, we ranked pretty high in defense most of those years. So it was a fun, good experience for me.
It had to be, I mean, a great experience, and it had to be a tough time as a competitor wanting to win, because obviously the Pac 8, again, it was the Pac 8 at that time, right?
Well, I think you're right, or Pac 10. I don't know, too long ago, buddy.
Gosh, I know, but and these conferences now, they change right and left. We don't even count. The Big Ten doesn't even have 10 teams, for crying out loud.
I think it was the Pac 10, but it might have been the Pac 8.
Okay.
Now let me ask my wife, Joanne. What was it? Oh, she's not sure. She's been hit in the head too many times too.
Well, whatever it was the Pac something or other, but
yeah, exactly.
It was certainly dominated at that time by UCLA and for a couple of years by Stanford while you were there. So you weren't making it to major bowl games, but it still was.
SC was tough. They had John McKay and all that crew. They'd won the national championship, I think, with OJ. So that was probably the toughest team at that time.
Is there other players in that league who that stood out during your time there that either became pros or you're surprised maybe didn't make it as pros?
Well, my roommate was Ron Urie, and I roomed with Ron for 9 years, and then and he lives right up the road. So I just talked to him yesterday, and he's a good friend, and so he's a good one. We had a team. Bud kept that nucleus together in Minnesota. And we grew as not only friends and teammates, but we got to know each other. What our partner was going to do next to us, it was like a dance.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing thing to happen. And it's I tell people I was the luckiest guy in the world. I played for 2 Hall of Fame coaches. I played between 2 Hall of Fame, actually 4 guys. All of them should be in the Hall of Fame. Mick Tinglehoff and Donnie Masick in San Diego, 2 centers in my 17 years, and 2 tackles, Russ Washington and Ron Urie. And they're all great players, so it's pretty hard not to end up being fairly decent.
Well, it was very interesting, actually. I was thinking about this just before we started this afternoon, that the Vikings, I mean, in those days, teams stayed together a little longer than they do today anyway, as a whole.
Right.
But the defensive front and the offensive front of those 2 teams, of that team specifically, gosh, it seems like most of you guys were there, it seemed, for a lot of years together, as you said, as a unit. And it,
I think
is the reason. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, and then I'll.
Well, it's funny because I also wanted to segue, because before we got to this point, I wanted to ask you about your transition, because I didn't realize till I was doing some information, research on you before we chatted.
A rookie to make it my year, and there wasn't a rookie, I don't think, that made it the next year. I mean, they didn't even keep the first round draft choices. Like nothing like they do now. And very few guys made the team. And so when I got traded, I was 39 years old, and I was still one of the youngest guys on the Vikings. And I went to San Diego, and all of a sudden I'm the oldest guy. It was weird. And so I was able to take a leadership role just by virtue of age. And I was the understudy of Jim Marshall and Carl Eller and Mick Tingelhoff, Fran Tarkington, all the great Viking leaders, and able to take those qualities that those guys had and share it with my San Diego teammates. And of course I had another great coach and Coach Coryell, who was it was completely opposite of Coach Grant, but just as amazing, as an amazing mind, and let everything go and had fun, and we laughed and just kept winning.
Well, those Minnesota teams that you grew up with, you mentioned a lot of the great names there. I mean, am I right? Are you the only guy who went to all 4 Super Bowls, or were there other?
No, there's I think 10 guys.
There were 10 guys. Okay,
there was 10 of us. Yeah, but yeah.
It's quite an accomplishment. And, obviously later on we had the Bills, who got to 4 consecutive Super Bowls, and you guys were in 4 Super Bowls in a short period of time in the 70s. I mean, that's a great accomplishment for a team. I mean, you don't quite get over the top and win. And I don't think that these teams get the recognition for how great they were, because they never won that Lombardi trophy or the Super Bowl trophy, whatever it might have been called at that time. Do you feel like the Vikings of that era get short thrifted a little bit because of it?
Well, I have to say, even myself, I feel that there's something inside that was missing, because I know how good our team was, and for some reason, and you can't put you can't put anything on it, but we did things a certain way, and Bud was really good about protecting us, and he insulated us from everything, from the media, from the crowds and the fans, and we were sort of immature about a lot of things, and so when we go into this Super Bowl environment where we have we sit around a table and we've got 25 guys around you asking you questions, and before that you would have nobody, because the reporters weren't allowed in the locker room, and it was we were it was different for us, I think, than a lot of teams. And I think that all the things that helped get us there, it probably didn't help us in a when we all of a sudden the lights were bright and we were on stage. It was just a different environment, totally. We were from too far north.
Yeah, that's an interesting take that you put forth there. I mean, as great a coach as Bud Grant was, and you've spoken very highly of him, and I'm sure you have nothing bad to say about him. But
no, nothing.
All those things that made him so successful and you so successful kind of held you back in that big moment. Is there one game of those 4 in particular that might stick in your craw more than others? Is one that just like, we should have won this game?
The thing is, Keith, I don't think of any of them.
Really?
Because it's such a negative way to end a beautiful season, that I don't have any regrets. I'm just so thankful that I was able to participate.
Yeah.
My family was able to go, and this dining room set was paid for with my first Super Bowl check. I mean,
that's okay.
Yeah, and I think it was I use the word blessing, but it was a blessing and something to be grateful for, just to be able to be with a group of guys, coaches, and players that were able to achieve what we achieved. Yeah,
I agree. Growing up, I'm a little younger than you, not a lot, but a little, and coming of age and watching and starting to learn what sports and major sports were all about. And I enjoyed watching those Minnesota teams, and and the way that they played football, and football outdoors in the cold, and growing up with NFL films. I mean, I think people talk about how NFL films help make the NFL, and I think they did. And they talk about the Cowboys, but I think some of the footage that they shot up in Minnesota, out in the cold, Bud Grant out there, just like a chilled, chiseled from stone, it just looked like it was something about different. I mean, we'll touch on it right now because I want to touch on it at some point. I mean, the difference between the game then, Ed, and the game today, I mean, is there any resemblance of the game being played today as what you played then?
I tell you, I really haven't looked at it from those eyes, because my wife and I love watching it. I mean, we love football. I think it's amazing.
Oh, still a great game.
Especially what they've been able to do through this pandemic. And I know that the losing a couple of weeks' salary is pretty incentive for not getting sick. But no matter, there's a lot of moving parts, and to keep guys on the field like that, I'm amazed, and I'm proud of the product that it's being put forth. It's amazing, and I think I have nothing negative to say. I feel grateful for what I've been given and the pension that I have, and it's been a wonderful life, and I'm thankful to the NFL for that. My body is a little rickety right now. Other than that, things are good. But you were talking about the weather, Bud. We practice no matter what. We practice outside. We wouldn't practice on the field at the Met. We'd go to St. Paul to a little dive of a stadium, and we did our practices there. But we were always outside. Everybody'd be in their sweats, but it was we didn't miss anything for weather, and so it was. And again, you take the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl would have been played in our home environment, or something similar to that. I bet you we'd have won 50% of them at least, and because that was our home field, and that was our home field advantage, and that when the Rams came in for the playoffs or the Niners came in for the playoffs, it was something that was in the back of our head, knowing that hey, that's an edge. And after going to San Diego and then getting ready for a cold weather game and having everybody going, what kind of scuba gloves are we going to wear? And how many it was like, I'm going, I see the advantage that we really did have. And we did, because we trained, and our minds were trained like warriors to that. This is the environment we're going to do it in. And it was cool.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to stay on the comparison of the years for a little bit. I know years are hard to compare, but from a home field perspective, it had to be night and day between playing in a dome today and playing in that environment years ago.
Oh, unreal! And it starts. The psychological part starts the week of preparation, because the guys are wondering, how cool is it going to be? What are we going to wear? And the equipment man's getting scuba gloves for guys so their hands don't get frostbite. I mean, it's
right.
There's a lot going on, and in the meantime, we're out there practicing like normal in the weather, and knowing we're only going to be out there for a couple hours.
Speaking of cold weather games and what it was like with San Diego, you weren't still there. You were retired, I think, when they played that game in Cincinnati.
No, I played in that game.
Were you still on that team when that's right. It was like 80 or 81, wasn't it? 82
it was 80
maybe.
below zero with wind chill. That was the coldest game I'd ever played in. And it was a week after we had gone to Miami and played in that game. That was
that was a tremendous game.
5 quarters long, and it was 102 degrees. Here's a funny. If I got time for a funny story?
You got time for any story you want, bud.
I was interviewed after the game, and my locker was next to Louis Kelcher, and Louis about 320, Texas brawl, and the reporter goes, I mean, guys were so exhausted, it was incredible. And they asked Louis, hey, how do you feel? He said, well, I feel like I just rode horseback from San Diego to Miami. And the guy, in this next breath, he just turned over to me and goes, Ed, how do you feel? And I said, I feel like the horse that Louis rode.
That's awesome.
That was my best quote, I think, ever.
That's a great one. I'm glad you shared that with us today for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I have to tell you too about that game. And again, I've only been watching the NFL since 1968. But I still think that's the best NFL game I've ever watched in my entire life. Is that game?
That was that was a back and forth at the end. I mean, I thought for sure that your premium, was that the guy, the kicker for Miami? Your premium, I think. I can't remember his name.
Well, he was gone by then. It was I feel like the kicker might have been like Uwe von Schamann or somebody like that for Miami then.
Okay. Anyway, when he missed like two of them, right? That were I mean, it was amazing. And then Rolf, I think, missed one too, and it was like we were just going, whoa, and it was total, complete exhaustion. Yeah, I've never ever been like that in my life.
I remember watching Kellen Winslow get carried off the field by two of your teammates, and he did everything in that game, including blocking a field goal, if I remember right.
Yeah, he did. That's right. Yeah,
just a tremendous game.
Yeah, it was good.
So you talked a little bit about, let's talk about Minnesota a little bit more before we move on to San Diego. So you talk about some of your great teammates, a lot of Hall of Famers there, obviously, great players.
Yeah.
One guy that comes to mind, and I know one of my regular viewers will certainly want me to ask this question. He's a big Minnesota fan, and he's also a big Georgia fan. So you can imagine he's a big Fran Tarkenton fan.
Yeah.
I mean, and not everybody seems to be a big Fran Tarkenton fan. I'm not sure why, but what was it like playing with Fran? And I mean, was he? I mean, he was a great player, but was he a great teammate and good?
He was a very bright guy that we had a lot of confidence in as a quarterback. He was able to, get out of trouble if you missed a block, which, didn't happen too much with our line.
Yeah.
And he gave 110% all the time. And, you respect guys like that. And I don't know a time that he didn't. And his ability to scramble when he got in trouble. Some guys thought it was a negative because you weren't sure where he's at. I always thought it was a positive, and he did positive things for us, and that's why he's in the Hall of Fame.
It's funny because again, I go back to eras, and it is hard to compare eras, but that team, I think. They say, the game's different. I say it sometimes too. Obviously, I just did a few minutes ago that the game's different, but I think that team had enough people on it that could play today's game. Tarkenton could play in the game today if Russell Wilson can play and whatnot, right? Tarkenton can play.
He's a lot like Chuck from Kansas City.
Yeah, you had Chuck Foreman who could certainly play in today's game. There's certainly guys who could translate their game. One thing that stands out though is, I mean, the offensive linemen are so big today.
Yes.
Right? I mean, what'd you play at? 270? 280?
Yeah, 280 most of the time. But they're like, I'm like 315 right now. I was naturally about 310 pounds.
Yeah.
And so I had to actually lose. I've got big bones.
Yeah, my grandfather always said that about me too.
Yeah. But I was big in my era. I was a big lineman, one of the big offensive linemen in that time. A lot of them, like Milt Sunday was probably 245, and Mick was probably 245, and so that Grady Alderman was probably 250 at most. So that was kind of the period of the small, kind of the watch charm guard kind of guys.
Do you think that if you guys were had played in a different area, they just would have trained you differently and you would have been bigger? And so
I think so, or bigger guys would have taken over that role. The game has changed from the standpoint of what they teach. They're not down in the legs anymore, so it's not as quick, athletic kind of things. Although these guys are amazing athletes.
Yeah,
I really enjoy watching these linemen today. But everything is up higher. It's more what we call like hope I don't get in trouble for saying it, but titty blocking, which was, blocking it in the
I
chest.
think he'll be all right.
Okay. And anyway, it's changed a lot. It's all up and it protects the guys. And I like that. And they're not using their heads as much. I use my head for everything. And that's why I got, not dementia, but Alzheimer's. Forgot I had what I had. Anyway.
Well, it's good that you can at least make light of it a little bit. So
yes, exactly. Yeah.
You seem like you're
I had
doing
too much
okay.
fun not to.
Yeah. Listen, as far as those, again, I want to get on to San Diego, but those Minnesota teams, if there was somebody with all those great players we just talked about, who was the unsung guy on that team that really made, that people wouldn't think of that was so important to the team's success? Who would you say was that one guy?
Ooh. Gosh,
so many great players. I know it's hard to come up with somebody.
It's hard because they were pretty much all pretty well-known guys. In our offensive line, it was probably Milt Sunday.
Okay.
Who was just got everything he could out of what he had. I'm going to put it that way. From the University of Minnesota, and passed away last year. He was just a super guy. Mick Tingelhoff was not a big guy and got a lot done, and Mick just passed away a month or so ago.
Yeah, I saw you post that. My condolences there. I know you guys are tight.
Yeah. And John Beasley probably as our tight end didn't get a lot of accolades.
Stu Voigt was actually a name I had in my head as one of those
Stu
guys.
Voigt is another one. Both of them. They didn't. But we didn't have a flashy offense. We were kind of a 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of offense. And
I was waiting to see if he'd come up with Ed Marinaro. Actually, that's what.
Ed is another one. Yeah. And it wasn't a kind of an offense where I don't think Bud Light guys getting the spotlight put on him too much. I really don't. I think he would rather have a bunch of slug mugs. And that's kind of what offensively. Francis had a little more glamour and light on him. Ahmad did, but the rest of us, Yeri maybe a little more, but the rest of us kind of existed below the curtain. So,
as your time comes to an end in Minnesota, Ed, what precipitated you leaving Minnesota and heading out, closer to home, at least in California? What precipitated?
Well, basically, when I first started, Jim Finks was the general manager, and I really liked Jim Finks, and I thought he was very fair, and he had what he called payroll integrity, and that was Jim Marshall, Fran Tarkington, Mick Tingelhoff. All these guys earned a certain amount of money, and everybody fits in a certain spot, and I bought into that. And then about my 8th year, after going to a few Pro Bowls and hearing what these guys are making, I'm going, wait a minute, this payroll integrity, I don't know if that makes any sense here now, because there's also a fairness in what we're making.
Right.
And I was earning in the high 40s a year, which wasn't nearly comparable to what other guys were making that played my position. And then the real bugaboo came in, and when I said, hey, this isn't fair, it's not right, and Mike Lynn, and I'll just say it how it is, told Bob Stein, my attorney, that if I held out until I think the 3rd league game in my 7th season, and then they said they'd renegotiate my contract if I came back and finished the season there. And so I did, and they didn't do my contract. So I didn't go to training camp. And so, right before the season opened, I thought I was going to Buffalo. That's, where it all pointed with OJ and DeLamielleure and those guys.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. At the last minute, I get a call from Buddy. He goes, hey, I hate to tell you, but we're trading you to San Diego. And I'm going, I think first I'm going to go, yes, I'm going home, born and raised there. But it was a bittersweet. I really, it's like I told Bud on we had a Zoom the other day for the reunion, and I said I know I'd still be there snowmobiling with my family, and if I'd have kept playing there. That's the sad part. We loved it. Together all year round, and so that's the bittersweet part of it. The bitter part. The sweet part was my mom and dad got to see me play, and some of my relatives, and I was back home, and my wife's family got to watch, and that was the sweet part, and so that was good.
Well, it sounds too like it was a good fit for you, because you seem to enjoy your time in San Diego from what you've said so far, and playing for Coach Coryell, who, again, as you mentioned, had to be like night and day from Bud Grant to Don Coryell. I mean, I can't take it two guys further on either end of the spectrum, personality-wise.
Yeah,
at least outwardly.
One was a general, and one was like Daffy Duck. I mean, he was just, the guy just, you loved him. He was just, he was a character. He was a character. He always had us in stitches, and he always wanted to throw that ball down the field and move downfield, and we all bought into it and loved it. And we'd go into the huddle, and Dan would say, "How many plays is it going to take us to get in the end zone?" We'd all be yelling different numbers, and it was a powerful lot. I think we led the league in offense, almost every year. It was incredible.
I remember when the Rams were winning a Super Bowl in St. Louis for Dick Vermeil, and they called it the greatest show on turf. And I thought to myself, I've already seen that movie. It was in San Diego in the 80s, 70s and 80s. You guys were just tremendous. The defensive side of the ball wasn't quite as good. You had some great players like Louis Kelcher, you mentioned.
Fred Dean, Gary Johnson. Yeah, we did. We did. And, for some reason, I don't know what happened, but they just all of a sudden disintegrated as those guys were maturing, and two of them got traded. Louis and Fred got traded to the Niners, and the Niners go to the Super Bowl with those guys, and it just wasn't meant to be, but I had a great career there. Coach Coryell hired me, rather than firing me, hired me as an assistant offensive line coach, and so I was an assistant to Dave Levy, and that was a great experience, and I loved that. And so it was an easy fall out of playing into normal life.
Yeah. Before I go into that coaching part of your career, I mean, when you were playing in the two different conferences, I mean, it's been a long time since the merger, obviously. I mean, was there much of a difference between the AFC and the NFC at that point in time, as far as the way the game was played?
I think less of a difference, but even the first Super Bowl in '69, that team was an AFC team that was different in a lot of ways. We faced a 34 defense instead of a 4-3. We faced a 4-3 defense almost every week in the NFL.
Yeah.
That was the NFL, not the AFL. It was AFL, NFL, right? Yeah. So and then the AFL, it was screwy, and it was tough for us to adjust as linemen to blocking against that different front, and so it was a different deal, and also the passing game was so much more complex, and so there was a difference in the two. It leveled out in the end because coaches got jumped around from league to league, players got jumped around, so things balance it out, and there's less and less difference as the years go on. So, but there was a pretty significant difference at the beginning.
Yeah, it's certainly from the beginning, as you said, even teams got jumped around, like the Colts changed conferences, I know, and
exactly.
Didn't somebody else, one other team, I thought moved when they had the merger. I can't remember who it was now. Cleveland. Oh, Cleveland Browns, right? Cleveland and Baltimore. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as your career ended, you go right into coaching, as you said, and you had a pretty long career coaching, both in the pros and in college.
Right.
At your I think at your alma mater and San Diego State, if I'm right.
Yep.
I mean, were you happy with coaching way your coaching career? Did you have higher aspirations than to do what you did, or that was kind of where you?
I was so into teaching individual technique to players and helping them with improving as a player, as a technician, that I guess I wasn't as disappointed. Obviously disappointed. We came close in San Diego to winning it several times, but I was focused more on the offensive linemen and their development as people and as players, and so you can't be disappointed in that. And so I have great relationships with all my guys. I was online talking to one of my ex-Cal players, and I always talk with my ex-San Diego State players, several of them. Mm-hmm. And it's that's the neat thing about coaching. I love that, and I love Coach Coryell for him letting me land in a bunch of feathers from a career to coaching. That made the transition very, very easy. But it's a very hard, time-consuming, away from your family. There's a lot of that you lose, and I kind of regret that part of it. But it selfishly, it was really good as a ex-player to be able to share the knowledge and that with young people. And so that was nice. I enjoyed that part of it. So it was good, and probably did that for over 10 years, and then decided that it was time to come home and pester my wife more.
How often does she ask you to go back into coaching? So
No, she doesn't. She doesn't, but I don't know. There may be times she does, but no, she's been great. We've been going together since she was a sophomore in high school and I was a junior. So she's a very tolerant lady. She's a teacher too.
Our wives are always the better parts of us, aren't they? I mean,
absolutely.
Gosh, for sure. Listen, You had a great career. I mean, do you have thoughts about, I mentioned at the top of this interview, Ed, about Dan Fouts' comments about you in the Hall of Fame. And do you think about that at all? Do you have thoughts about whether you should be there or shouldn't be, or?
Only when people bring it up do I think about it, but I don't.
I apologize.
Yeah, no. It's fine. I appreciate it. Actually, it's a nice gesture and thought.
Yeah.
But it's a decision that's made by somebody else, so I don't get too hung up on it. It'd be a great thing. I'm not saying I wouldn't enjoy it. It would be great. Yeah. But I've been so fortunate to be in the College Hall of Fame and in the Berkeley Hall of Fame and the Charger Hall of Fame, and it's like Andy Warhol said, the 90 seconds of whatever.
15 minutes of fame. 15 minutes.
That's it. Right. And that's what they all are, right? I mean,
actually, in today's day, it might be 90 seconds of fame. The way everything, media gratification and all.
Hopefully, I can find out.
Well, I'm going to start my own little grassroots campaign to get Ed White in the Hall of Fame. How about that? I will talk about it at every chance I get. Not that, I'm not Seth Rogen out here. It's not Seth Rogen, Joe Rogan. Yeah. I don't have, 60 billion followers, but I'll do it. I'll do the little part that I can for you.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Listen, your attitude is tremendous. I mean, I know you and your wife Joanne. I mean, you've gone through stuff in your life that that can be very difficult for people, and you're going through, as you mentioned, some stuff now. And your attitude is just amazing to me. I mean, what do you attribute, after the things you've been through in your life, the attitude actually, that you still carry?
I think a good mother and father that. Made me go to church with him, and a Southern Baptist preacher. And then as I went on, all my teammates were Catholic, so I started going to church with them before the games. And then, I listened to a priest, actually, not being a Catholic, but Richard Rohr, who is an amazing guy. He was a Jesuit priest, and he had a prison ministry. And Richard Rohr, he just loves everything. He loves the Buddhist. He loves, everybody, and thinks we're all God's creation. And I love that. And I think that just gives me a lot of things to be grateful for. And I think gratitude is, if you're grateful for what you have, then you got to be happy.
That's a tremendous, like I said, it's a tremendous attitude. I didn't even realize, some of the things that you'd been through or are going through until I kind of started looking deeper into it. And your attitude is amazing. And wherever you get it from, God bless you. And I hope that continues and you have continued good health. And guys, please get out there to Ed's site. Again, it's what do we got? I got it written down here.
edwhiteart.com.
edwhiteart.com.
Yeah,
Excellent.
there's some good stuff, and I paint whatever I feel like painting. So beware. There's some violent football stuff, and
Yeah, it's funny. We'll talk a little bit about that before we wrap it up, because I was amazed at I don't know if eclectic is the right word for it, but it might be. I mean, the wide spectrum of things that you paint, as you said, I saw a couple that were kind of violent football. Right. I'm glad you described it that way, so I didn't have to myself. Right through some beautiful, soothing pictures. And so you paint what you feel like painting at that given time, but is there something that inspires you that inside when you're in one of those moods and then takes you one direction or another?
Well, I'm a big environmentalist. I studied at the College of Environmental Design at Berkeley, and so environment and is important to me. Landscaping is, and so I love flowers, and and everything a flower represents. So I do paint a lot of flowers, and it just it comes from my soul. Whatever I'm feeling like. Right now, I have a buddy that wants me to paint his cat, and so
his cat.
I'm kind of trying to get up the steam for that one, but I'm going to do it because he's a good friend, ex-teammate, and Jim Marshall. I'm doing a painting. Jim's wife called and wants a painting of Jim, and I did one, and I can't find it. I must have sold it, but anyhow, so I'm painting one for Jim Marshall, who I really respect. He was my guru. I mean, a 220-pound, or if he was 220, played defensive end for
20 some years, right?
20 some odd years, and they didn't know how old he was when he came there from Ohio State. So amazing guy. And I just talked to him, and he's beat up, and but an amazing mental approach to football. I mean, he knew how to get the most out of his body. He studied the martial arts in the off season. He worked at martial arts. He taught me about chi or chai, however it's pronounced, the ability to get your maximum power in the quickest amount of time. And there are principles that I used as a player, striking with that kind of power and ability. And that was Jim. He was my guru. I told him again every time I talked to him. He was my guru. And he was the captain of our Viking team every year. And so
I remember being very young, reading a article in Sports Illustrated about him, and I don't remember all the details, but he'd gotten stranded out in the wilderness on a
snowmobile.
On a snowmobile, right? In the middle of the wilderness.
Yeah, and lived in a cave, and they burned their money to stay alive. Yeah.
Amazing story. I remember. I'll have to look that up actually and reread it, because I remember that's one of the first articles I can remember reading in Sports Illustrated and going, "My gosh, what a tremendous story of survival!" And
you should get him on your show, Keith.
I would love to. I'd love to. If you have a contact for Jim, I'd love you to have it. So
I'll get that to you.
I would appreciate it. So, Ed, I appreciate having you on today. Listen, your career was Hall of Fame worthy, and I'm going to take up that torch. You gave a lot of joy to I know you give a lot of joy to Rick Sherlock. Who, if you can say hi to Rick Sherlock, he'll enjoy that when he gets to watch
it. How are you, buddy?
He's the biggest Minnesota fan that I know.
All right.
And one of my best and one of my
big
best
Minnesota fan too.
and one of my best followers. So thank you for that.
All right.
And if you want to stay for a second after, I want to chat with you real quick, and
Yeah,
we'll wrap it up here. I thank you for coming in today.
you're welcome.
Guys, what a great interview. What a great guy Ed White is. Gosh, going through some things now. As he mentioned during the interview, Alzheimer's. I think he was diagnosed like 3 years ago. So, he's holding up very well. As you can see, very happy to hear that. It's always a scary word to hear about anybody. You hear it a lot with football players these days, obviously. Time didn't permit me to kind of go down that road, but I would like to have. And maybe I will have Ed back on at some point, and we'd go down that road and chat about that very serious topic. But, him and his wife have been through some other tribulations with a child passing. And their home burning down in wildfires 15 years ago-ish, maybe a little longer. But gosh, what a great attitude about life in general. And I really appreciated Ed coming on and sharing that. And hopefully Ed's going to hook me up with a few of his teammates. We'll see. Jim Marshall we talked about. What a great player. Ed Marinaro. I don't remember if he came up during that interview or not, but I've been trying to reach out to Ed Marinaro. Ed Marinara, I think I said first. He's not a sauce. He's a former football player and actor. So I've been trying to reach out to him to get him on the show as well, because actually I enjoyed I was a big Hill Street Blues fan, so I enjoyed his stuff for sure. Let's see, a couple of comments. Am I watching the AFL Grand Finale tomorrow? I'm not really sure what that is. But if you want to elaborate, I'll let you know. It's probably, it's the biggest event here in Kabul since the evacuation. What is it? Tell us, Gabe, is it soccer? What are we talking about here? And I'll certainly check it out, and maybe we can talk about it on our Sunday Stream of Consciousness show. And I do appreciate, obviously, you're following the show and watching today. And I didn't know we had viewers in Afghanistan. So thank you, and stay safe. Oh, I get it. Australian rules football. Rugby, great sport. What we don't follow enough here, I guess, in the States. And, Gay, I'll promise you that I'll take a look for it, see what I can find as far as following it. If you can send me any more information, you can certainly put it to you can share it to the TGI Sports Talk page. I'd certainly appreciate that. We want to support sports wherever they are all over the globe. So I do, and we do appreciate you following us. If you're there in Kabul, it's exciting to know that we're reaching that part of the country, and I do hope you're staying safe over there. By the way, I know this isn't a political show, but I know you guys are in the middle of a quagmire, and I hope that you and your family are safe. So stay safe out there. And we'll check out that AFL grand final in rugby or American or Australian rules football, which if I'm calling it rugby incorrectly, I apologize. I do love the sport. It's very interesting though, right? So anyway, back to Ed White. Tremendous interview. I hope, I know Rick Sherlock isn't able to watch this show live, and I hope he enjoys that. I've been trying to get some of those Vikings. I've had some contact with Chuck Foreman, and that hasn't worked out. As I mentioned, Ed may hook me up with a few other guys, so we could have some Vikings on in the future. Coming up next week, I'm not sure yet. I'll see over the weekend. We'll promote what the show will be next Friday. I'm going to have an interview with Tommy John, but I'm not sure if that'll play next Friday or I'll play that interview one of the weeks that I'm on vacation. Just so you guys know, I'm trying to get some interviews lined up for the weeks of October, gosh, whatever it is. I guess it's the 15th and the 22nd. I'll be away and unable to do the show live. I may do some of my shows from the deck of the cruise ship, depending on my streaming capabilities. I do get internet when I'm on these cruises, but I never try to tried to stream the show. So we're going to try to do at least check-ins. So but on Fridays, if I can get a couple interviews in the, recorded and ready to go, queued up, I'll just play those interviews for you guys. And maybe if not, we'll do the best of, play a couple best of interviews or something. So keep that in mind. And we're going to try to do some other, at least touch base on Wednesday nights, maybe. With the college football huddle for a few minutes, the Sunday stream of consciousness. I'll try to check in and maybe do a half hour or 20 minutes, whatever. Depending, again, I'll test the stream when I get on the ship, and we'll see how it goes. But I'll keep you guys abreast of that in the next few weeks. So we got some good stuff coming up. I do have, as I said, Tommy John. On the 8th of October, I'll have Steve Zabel, former NFL linebacker with the Eagles and my New England Patriots back in the 70s. I remember him very, very well. And some of you may as well. So we're looking forward to that. And a lot more to come in the coming weeks. Guys, I'll tell you what, the college football show has done very well. So those of you who haven't checked it out, please do. The audience has been picking up, and the audience participation has picked up greatly. We've had Mark Mancini from Mancini Media joins me on that show, as he does on the Stream of Consciousness show Sunday mornings. So I'm excited to do that show. I love college football as much as I love the NFL, and it's been a lot of fun doing the show. And I do replay it, so you guys can either go back. I do know it's there, but to get those notifications that it's live again, we pick up a few hundred viewers just replaying it. It'll replay today at noon and tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'm going to start replaying these Friday interviews. I'm not sure when, but it may be later in the evening or something when. I don't know the times that people are necessarily on Facebook more than other times, or YouTube, or wherever they might be. YouTube, I really want to get the viewership up there. I'm not sure exactly how to do it. Facebook, I know how to do it. You groups that allow me to share this, you're my life's blood right now, and along with the people in the room. So you guys, please like the show, share the shows, go to TGI Sports Talk and invite your friends. If you go to the top of the page, there's 3 buttons next to, I'm not really sure if you're right near my profile picture, I guess. There's 3 little buttons. And if you go there, one of your choices is invite friends, and you can invite them all. Let's drive our following up to 2,000 here, or get close to 2,000 by the first quarter next year. That'd be awesome. I think where we are is just a great place. Not investing any money except with the little bit of technology you see in front of you, and my willingness to do this, which is a joy for me. I'm not looking to make money. I'm looking to get followers and provide good content for you guys, and I hope that comes through. So anyway, what else? No other comments? I want to thank Dave Guyette. I want to thank Gay from Kabul. Thank you. And Brett Cloutier was in the room today commenting. I know my dad was in the room today. Thank you, guys. Really enjoyed talking with Ed White today, and we'll see what we have coming up here in the future, and I will keep you guys apprised of what we're going to do. So you guys have a great weekend. I know I'm going to. It's going to be nice fall weather here. Great weather for maybe sitting outside by the fire, watching some college football tomorrow night. And then we're off to Recovery Room in Amsterdam. I got to stop giving out these free promos. These guys got to start ponying up, right? Sunday to watch the Patriots, Saints, and lots of other NFL football. We'll see you guys on the flip side. You have a great weekend. Keith Engel for TGI Sports Talk right here on Northeast Streaming Sports Network. We'll see you later.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.